Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check, check, check. Check. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Check, check.
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Oh, we'll change that. We'll change that. Yes. Hey, the early one. Wait a second. We're not early. We're on time.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. It's good to see you. How's your world? How are things in your world?
Pretty good. I'm really curious about what your new role is at Forward Cities, though.
Oh, can you share yet? I'm curious as well. It's coming together. I'm not sure that I can explain it well. We got the dream team on. I love it. The ESHIP Goals dream team.
Yay. All right. I'm going to put myself on mute. You guys all carry on.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Good.
Good. One word answers only.
Pretty good.
I updated the agenda.
I thought that cool.
I was like, I wanted to make sure that I did it right, because my understanding from our call is that we're just keeping one agenda and just putting the latest one at the top. Is that correct? Or did I?
That's. I think we're all playing with it a little bit. So I think what you did is absolutely correct.
Oh, okay. So there's no standard format yet. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think the idea is what you just did, which is you created a separate call notes thing. I think that's right.
Yes.
And
Hi, Carlos. Welcome.
So Eric, are you still working for the city and doing both that and Forward Cities, or if you left the city of Albuquerque?
Yeah. So hi. I was just typing a note to say just in case my connectivity is a little weak. I turned off the video for now, although I'll probably spice it up a little bit later. So I've left the city of Albuquerque as of about 2 weeks ago. And
oh, well, congratulations.
I'm giving you a thumbs up. Can you see? Yeah, I mean, city of Albuquerque was really good in a lot of different ways, but this is just sort of an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So really excited about it. And I don't know, we won't probably get into too much, but I'm leading the work that they're doing related to ESHIP communities. Now, leading meaning that Faye Horowitz, who has been leading that, is handing off a big chunk of that to me. But so I'm overseeing some of the different folks who will be the local developers, local leaders.
Awesome. That is awesome. Let's see. I see Carlos has joined us. How you doing, Carlos?
Good. How are you?
Where are you calling from, Carlos?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Grand Rapids. And let's see. Antonia is on the call.
Hi. Hello.
Antonia. Let's see. Antonia, where are you calling from?
Calling from San Francisco.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We're gonna just wait maybe one more minute to see if anybody else shows up on the call.
Antonia, how was your event?
Oh, it was fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, 5th anniversary of Tech Inclusion went really well. We had an awesome turnout, and the mood was it was great. It was celebratory, and new faces that have been there since day one, and really some great content, some new innovative stuff. One of the highlights, I think, we had a panel that was the truth about motherhood in tech, and we actually had 2 moms come on stage with their newborns, and so that was fantastic, and a lot of other great panels. So
wow,
it was great.
That's awesome. So for those of you who don't know, Antonia is part of Change Catalyst. And Change Catalyst has spoken at the ESHIP Summit before, and they're focused on inclusion in tech. So I just wanted to give a shout out for them for hosting the 5th annual Tech Inclusion event.
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you. And we also actually released an impact report recently, which I'd love to share with all of you. That we put together, kind of showcasing the impact that we've had over the last 5 years through the conferences, through consulting, through roundtables, and all of the work that we do. Put a lot of work into it, so I'd love to share it with you all as well, so you can learn a little bit more about what Change Catalyst does.
Share it in the notes in the chat, Antonia.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
Put it in the notes. Okay, it's 6 after. Should we get started at least with introductions? So the culture of how this works. So my name is Malika Robinson. I am the founder of Eastside Collaborative. I'm here in Kansas City, and I am one of the co-hosts for the call. And so just kind of helping to get things moving. I have a couple more co-hosts on the call who I hope will raise their hands as they go around and introduce themselves. And so we usually have some kind of introductory question. And my daughter today was noticing that the seasons are changing. I live in the Midwest, so we get to see all 4 seasons very well. And the thing about Kansas City is it'll be nice, and then tomorrow it'll be snowing. And, if you're not ready, it'll just pop off just like this. You're like, it's good. Everything is good. And then it'll just pop off. So the question for today is, what is your favorite season and why? My favorite season is spring because it's you know, it starts to be the time where when you wake up, the sun is coming up with you instead of you wake up and it's still dark. It's the season of growth, of new things. It's the season of rejuvenation where I get to pretend like I'm going to do something in my garden this year. I'm really going to do it next spring, but that is my favorite season and why. So I'm going to popcorn this to Jeff. And Jeff, if you can introduce yourself and tell us what your favorite season is and why.
Sure. So I think this is my first time on the on Goal One call. So I've been a long time participant of the ESHIP goals. I lead the storytelling movement. But I'm here to kind of see where the momentum is in Goal One and see what we can do to support in storytelling. I'm based in Sacramento, California. I run a startup called Startup Stack, which we support and try to grow and educate and inform our startup founders and entrepreneurs here. Favorite season, I was going to say spring as well, but since you said that, Malika, I'll say fall. And the reason why is because it's no longer over 100 degrees. We can count on not having 100-degree plus days anymore in Sacramento, which is really nice. So that's that. I will popcorn over to, let's go with Carlos.
So hi, Carlos Sanchez from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And yeah, also here in the Midwest. I wish for those 100 or 90-degree weather. We've been having rain for the past 3 or 4 days. It's unbelievable. I think this is a selfish season for me. My birthday is at the end of the month, so of course is the best season of all. Right on Halloween. So yeah, that's what I like it. So with that, I'm gonna popcorn to Eric.
Let's see. Hello, everyone. So, and I'll try and be a good person about video. I wish I had a good reason. I just love the fall. It just feels right. I like being able to kind of snuggle up. I like a fire, but I don't. So all the different things that go along with fall, those cool mornings, evenings, etc. The change in the leaves. In New Mexico, it's particularly brilliant in some parts of the state when the leaves change color. It just it's my time of year. Wish I had more of a reason to it. I don't know who the 720 number is, but I will popcorn over there.
Okay, hello. Hi, this is Salem from Change Catalyst. And I'm a little late, but I'm sensing there's a seasonal theme. So I will say spring, and that is because I love it when the sun comes back. Apologies for the background noise. That's why I've been on mute. Yeah, happy to join. And I think I'll stop there. I'm not sure whoever isn't remaining, I'll popcorn to them, but I can't see. So.
Why don't we do Cecilia?
Okay. Hi, I'm Cecilia Wessinger, and I am the ESHIP community activator focused on ecosystem building and community, which is all of you. And so I'm the one that just makes sure that all of these calls get recorded and uploaded to the dashboard and sends you reminders and all that other stuff. So I'm your support network. And my favorite season is the fall as well. It's not only because the weather is so much more pleasant in Tulsa, just like it is in Sacramento when we're no longer in 100-degree weather. Even though I'm traveling around a lot more, and I get to experience a lot of different seasons all in one trip sometimes. But I think it's a reminder. I feel like I'm in the fall of my life, which sounds very, I don't know, eclectic, but it's a reminder of taking a chance to take a breath and reminisce and just revisit a lot of the things that have happened and plan for what's next. So that's my artsy love of fall. So Antonia, to you.
Thank you. I guess I've already, somewhat introduced myself to everyone, but again, I'm Antonia Ford. I'm the head of marketing and community engagement at Change Catalyst. I work with Salem. And my favorite season would be probably winter. I like the cold. However, Mark Twain is famously misquoted as saying the coldest winter he ever spent was a summer in San Francisco, and I'm in San Francisco, and I can attest that that is in fact true. So summer/winter, I guess, would be my favorite seasons, but whenever it's cold. And let's see, who do we have we popcorn to everyone? Was I the last one? Okay.
It looks like that one was everybody. Okay, so, well, one, I'm glad to see everybody. It's people here from all over. I'm trying to, I'd like to get to know everybody a little bit more. So I'm trying to take notes as people talk about where they're from and what organizations they're from. Carlos, I missed your organization.
All right, sorry, I was unmuted. No, you didn't miss it because I didn't say it. I work for Ferris State University. It's of course a state university, but the name of my department is the Latino Business and Economic Development Center.
Okay, great. Okay, I think everybody has access to the notes, and Eric put a link into the chat. If you don't, if you can help me, because I probably spelled some things wrong. I had to look up Albuquerque just a minute to make sure I spelled that correctly. So I think everybody has edit access. If you can go in and add your stuff if I missed it. Yeah. So thanks for fixing Ferris, because I took a best guess. Okay. So let's see. So team, what's on the agenda today? So we've been trying to work through what these calls should look like. And one of the things that we said after the intro is that we would do updates and general updates. And I like to just kind of do a roll call of any general updates. I know we just got an update from Change Catalyst about how well their last event went. And Antonia, I think, is putting a link in the chat to their report. Any other updates on interesting things that have been going on in your cities lately that you've been a part of, or that you want to fit into what we do here?
Sure, I'll share just a tiny bit. So to answer a different question from earlier, so I just joined the team at Forward Cities. What we're involved in, the project that I'm specifically working on is the ESHIP Communities initiative that was started by the Kaufman Foundation and funded. We're doing engagements in 4 different communities around the US. 3 of them are cities, 1 of them is a region, and one of the really kind of core pieces of this is inclusive entrepreneurship. So we're working in Baltimore. Kansas City's already launched. What we did in the past week and a half is launch the work here in sort of north central New Mexico, which we're calling Rio Grande, and also yesterday launched in Long Beach. So it's a nice opportunity to make use of some of the lessons learned from different organizations about how we do foster more inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems. So excited about that new development. I'll be sharing more as we learn more.
So I'll just say, as these calls go forward, part of the discussion was on how some of the project campuses or some of the project teams were forming and whether or not they were moving forward. The idea of sharing updates on the calls is so that we can see what's going on and work together in alignment, or hopefully coordinate and keep people just up to date on any of the progress that was going on. So if anybody has any questions about the dashboards and the canvases and things like that, there was the link in the email. So I just wanted to make sure that that information gets shared. And there are a couple of initiatives that were elevated as a first good step to start on moving these ESHIP goals forward, particularly inclusive field. And so if there's any energy or any projects that are going forward, please feel free to share. And I'll turn it back to Malika.
Has anybody started participating in any of the projects, either for this goal or for any of the other goals?
Not me.
Oh, Carlos. No,
not me.
Are there teams that have
Okay,
formed
sorry,
around those 3 initiatives, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3? Are there project teams even started on those yet?
I don't think any project teams, or at least I don't think any canvases have been submitted yet for those project teams, if there are some people that are working on it.
Yeah, I'll just, so not for this, for let's see, collaborative culture, there's some work going on around the different versions of regional ESHIP. I'm not sure that I would call it project team exactly yet. There's about 5 different chefs in the kitchen, or 5 different chefs that are thinking about getting in the kitchen. I'm not sure how to put it, but there's definitely some energy around that topic. So that's one of the things that we've been talking about there. And I think some of us might bite the bullet and put together a canvas for that. The other thing that I'll mention on this topic that came up at the 1 Million Cups Organizers Summit last week is the possibility of, one of the things that's, inclusion is really important. It is a very interesting network with about over 170 different cities that are participating in 1 Million Cups. And as part of the organizer onboarding, that hasn't necessarily been a real formalized process. So the idea of, can we, if there's a few different chunks of information that we want to impart to organizers who tend to be, they don't necessarily think of themselves as ecosystem builders yet, but they definitely kind of fall into that profile a little bit. So if that seems like it's an opportunity to put some information about cultural competency, some of the issues that we see in communities across the US regarding equity and inclusion. So that's the canvas that I'm dabbling with at the moment to possibly introduce here.
Awesome. I know that there has been some talk about the Builder Fellowship, working towards that and getting that canvas done. Nobody's kind of taking the lead of that, but there is energy around it. So somebody just kind of needs to take the bullet and lead it. And I'm trying not to be the person that volunteers to take the lead on anything, even if it's just to send an email, but might be, because that is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, the fellowship piece of that. So.
Hey, Jeff, do you want to mention about the Co-Starters Co-Builder Fellowship a little bit?
I wish I could say more. I don't really know much about it. You'll know, maybe you know more because you're there in Chattanooga right now, I assume. But I know that there's Co-Starters is kicking off, I think even this week in Chattanooga, a small cohort of ecosystem builders. I think it's being dubbed Co.Builders. And it's kind of a support group around ecosystem builders who have side gigs or side projects to help us move those forward. But that's really about all I know. And I think it's going to be like a 9-month program where we meet online. I don't know how often. Honestly, that's all I know.
Yeah. So it's basically what Jeff said. It's not specifically focused towards inclusion, although it is an ecosystem builder fellowship. So probably more around goal 7, but my specific project is around cultural competency. So I'll be connecting with Eric, and I've spoken to a couple of people at the Forward Cities team, but it's something separate and aside from the things that I do for the ESHIP community in Kaufman. But as that develops, I'm happy to share. And Malika, I will look forward to speaking with you about it sometime soon. And I'm sure that I'll be getting in touch with our friends at Change Catalyst, since they are focused on that kind of work as well. So to be details to come.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna, so that's still in process, and it continues to be in process. And we see things moving bit by bit, which, you know, as we've been told, is part, when you have a mass group of people all collaborating on work, it is a process. But it's good to see that there is forward movement. I'm going to move us into the discussion. We were trying to figure out what should we talk about this week? How should we move these forward? I know Eric has put in the notes that he would like to have, in a future call, have a specific speaker come and speak. I think Natalie Self, about from the Foundation's Inclusion, Opening Funding Opportunities. So I think it would be good for us in the future to receive some of that knowledge and wisdom that she got from that. But today's topic, what we said was, we just wanted to share with each other about what are you doing in your ecosystem to reduce barriers and or make it more inclusive. Or, you know, just as to put a twist on that, what have you seen other people maybe doing in your ecosystem to reduce barriers or make it more inclusive? And I'm going to just open up the floor. Anybody can take the floor if you have some answers or thoughts.
Well, let me start. I don't know if it is a barrier, because the program, I facilitate Co-Starters curriculum in Spanish in the Latino community. So the way I'm taking a barrier is the language barrier. Aside from that, what we are doing is the barrier, the other barriers are of access. So we take the training, we take it to the Latino community, to the Hispanic Center, which is where usually they, if not reside, but it's a known place. We are also, thanks to the City of Grand Rapids, we have a grant, and we are able to provide some partial scholarships, even though the cost of it is $100. It's not that much, but for some it represents if they can't pay, then we give them some scholarships. However, what we don't want to do is we don't want to create a separate ecosystem from what the larger ecosystem, which also is again the more lucrative ecosystem, right? So what we are trying to do is actually, so you're building an ecosystem around those individuals in their language, but providing on-ramps to the main ecosystem, so they can, because at the end of the day, I mean, the language we speak in this country is English, so the majority speaks English. And but then again, just from the business standpoint, that is where the larger amount of dollars reside in the speaking in the English speaking community, if you will. So that's what we are doing at in the program that I lead.
Yeah, so is this something that, you know, did you translate it yourself, or are you working with something that they translated? How did you adapt this for your ecosystem? Because that's fascinating.
Co-Starters, actually, I was facilitating the Co-Starters curriculum, and I approached them about getting a translator, and they did. So they have a Spanish curriculum, the same one in English, but it's in Spanish. but it's not just translated, but it's somewhat adapted to Latino idiosyncrasy. Of course, names and all that is different. The only piece, though, that I have to say is that, again, because if the vast majority of these folks speak some English, but they like to have this information in Spanish. The feedback that I've given co-starters is that, one, maybe they can suggest the facilitators that it has to be, it has to be kind of like a bilingual facilitation, and also to have like a translation of the terms as an appendix in the back. Because, for example, if I keep telling the participants about flujo de caja, when they go to the bank, the banker most likely is not going to speak Spanish. They say, what is that? Well, it's cash flow. So they need to understand both the terminology, both in English and Spanish. But the concepts, it's easier for them to understand and learn the concepts if it is in their own language.
That is so dope. That's pretty cool. I wanted to share about some things that I'm working on here. Actually, Gabe Munoz and I are working on a panel for Global Entrepreneurship Week about I want to, use it as a time for ecosystem builders of color to come together and kind of talk about kind of why it's important to have us as part of the efforts in building an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? So because people are typically drawn to people that look like them or can relate to them and things like that. So the more of us that are visible and out there and realize that you're not just doing this on your own, the better. So that's one of the things that we're doing to try to reduce barriers is, one, just create community amongst people who may not even see themselves as ecosystem builders.
Malika, Gabe Munoz from, there's like a Hispanic center in Kansas City. Is that where he works?
Yeah, he used to work for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for quite some time, maybe like 10 years. Yeah, and maybe a year and a half ago, he became the ESHIP kind of fellow, ESHIP fellow for Kansas City. So he's one of a couple, and I think Eric will be working with Gabe and the other ESHIP fellows more closely.
Yeah, I just saw Gabe last week. Yeah, he's great. He's a particularly, some people are just suited to this, and they're the folks that kind of gravitate towards these calls and everything. But yeah, you've got a great team there in the Kansas City area. I'm really good.
I know it is true. We do have a great team here, and I'm starting to see more of us kind of doing some synergistic things. And I think a lot of that work is due to Gabe, quite honestly, kind of putting people in contact with you.
And from my understanding, Malika, Felicia Hatcher is going to be coming by at the end of October, beginning of November, to do Black Tech Week in Kansas City. So
I keep hearing that, but I haven't really heard anything on the ground yet. So
well, I will. She just said something on a live thing that she just did, so I'll get her to confirm and then reach out to you.
I'm sure that's true. So
she's pretty epic. So.
Hey, I just thought I'd throw something out there, and it's kind of piggybacking off of what Malika just said, kind of showcasing underrepresented groups. I just published an article a week or so ago where I interviewed Steven Rodriguez. He's doing something really cool in the DC area where he basically showcases what he calls the new majority, which I don't know if that's a term everybody's familiar with. I guess Melissa Bradley in the DC area came up with the term. But I'm going to put the link in the chat here. I think there's some really cool ideas that he has as far as a way to showcase traditionally underrepresented entrepreneurs. So that should be in the chat bot there. Basically what he does is he creates these visual cards that he shares on Instagram and other social media to showcase the face of entrepreneurship, how it's not just young hoodie wearing white guys, and that they are contributing to the economy. It's really cool stuff that he's doing.
Thank you for sharing that.
Antonio, I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Cecilia.
Oh, I was gonna ask Antonia and her colleague that what are the challenges that you run across as you host an event, like that's focused on inclusion, and is there like a common hurdle that you keep running up against, or because the argument is always, oh, well, we're looking for qualified people, like especially in technical industries. And that's the code word, right? The qualified people are the ones that aren't showing up, or there are not enough of them, or whatever. But I would imagine, as you've hosted this event for 5 years in your community and trying to get people on board, like what's the common thing that you hear?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, Salem, please jump in as well. But I would say specifically regarding talent, the pipeline problem, right, is like what people talk about, and that there isn't enough qualified, diverse talent like in the pipeline. But early on, like Change Catalyst knew that was a little bit of, what you might even call like a cop-out from companies. So that was our motivation to add a career fair element to our conferences. So for the past 5 years, that has been a component of the conference that has always been multi-day. And this year, 40 top tech companies showed up, which was incredible. We had almost 1,800 diverse candidates coming and showing these companies, and even the companies who weren't there, that talent does exist. And, I don't think that there is necessarily an obstacle to getting the talent there, because we all know that it's there and that people want these jobs. But I think making the business case to get the companies to come is sometimes an obstacle. You're dealing with a slightly different budget when you're talking about diversity and inclusion and asking for sponsorships than other tech conferences. So that can be an obstacle as well. And then, I mean, on the operational side, and maybe Salem can speak to this a little bit as well, for running an inclusive event, is that you have to always be learning. There's always new things that you can improve upon to make the event more inclusive. These things evolve over time. And so continuing to learn and potentially change and potentially acknowledge that we thought this was the right solution, but after getting feedback, realize there's a better way to do it. Those are things that I think are really important components to planning an inclusive event. Salem, what would you add on to that?
Yeah, that's great. I'd say one thing specifically in running an event, especially in 2017, we did events all across in London and in Australia, and there's always this dance of, working with organizations and with service providers who don't necessarily have like inclusion on their radar, and so there's a lot of education in addition to running an event. So, and just kind of in order to do what we do, that just comes with the territory. So it's a lot of, with our catering, wanting to make sure that we have a lot of dietary needs that are met, and it's not a big deal. It's just a baseline requirement of what we're doing. And similarly with venues, there's definitely a balance of, how much authority do we have, and having inclusive restrooms, and working with, who has control over the building that we're actually holding our event in. And so, there's a lot of navigating, bringing things that in certain areas or certain new places are very, very far ahead of whatever the conversation already is. And so, yeah, I think I mean, it makes it interesting. It makes it a lot more dynamic as we're planning out our events. And also, I think for us, you know, some of it is to really have a truly inclusive event. There's certain budget line items that maybe wouldn't exist otherwise. So things like always having ASL interpreters when we're here in the US and also in Australia, and having live captioning, things like that are just sort of like, that's where the bar is. And so that's just kind of built in, but you know, in some ways that makes it a heavier lift for us, because anything we're doing, we want to do it the right way. So anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to know, but there's some specifics about running our events.
And in addition to that, we have partnered with some organizations to put together some toolkits around creating inclusive events, which are also available on the Change Catalyst website. But because we've been doing this for 5 years, we're always happy to work with anyone or troubleshoot anything with anyone if they have questions about maybe things that we've done or other, you know, going into finer detail about some of the obstacles of creating these truly inclusive events. And I think something else that we all know is that the most inclusive thing I think you can do for these conferences is focus on representation when it comes to speakers as well, and making sure that you are representing a really broad spectrum of diversity that goes far beyond just gender and race, but also visible and invisible disabilities, age, veteran status, people who have been formerly incarcerated, and making sure that the attendees see themselves who are on stage. I hope, Cecilia, that answered your question in long form.
Well, I thought that was great. I'm sort of typing and trying to get some stuff in there. But yeah, that's just really fantastic. What I'll do is I'll try and grab the link from your site as far as the guidelines, because I think that's something that we just need to share it, you know, not just at a single call, but I keep gesturing at the screen, but not just at a single call, but, you know, frequently, just to keep that top of mind for a lot of folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'll see if I can drop that in the chat here.
Anybody else? So I have a question. Jeff, I know that you do a lot of work with convening ecosystem builders from different spaces into one place, but I'm interested in what people do locally in terms of having support in what you do. Do you guys have meetups locally? Do you have a crew? Like, what is it that you guys are doing there? And then how are you also connected with people kind of outside of your, you know, as we talk about an inclusive field, that means more people that either look like us or more people that, you know, are differently able than us, in terms of people who are supporting entrepreneurs. What's that look like where you live?
Well, so a lot to unpack there. So for us, specifically about meetups, and that's primarily one of the two things that we do. We have, we're a pretty small nonprofit, and so really we have some online resources that kind of talk about the what's going on in the community here as far as startups and entrepreneurship goes. We focus on tech startups, so I feel like we're not doing a great job in reaching all kinds of entrepreneurs because our mission is specifically focused on tech and high growth. But we do some meetups where we do a monthly happy hour, for instance, where we basically work with a restaurant or a space to basically just bring in a guest entrepreneur to answer questions, and it's part networking, it's part that. So we just put a call out through various channels, Eventbrite, our website, and we don't really do a good job, I think, at cultivating communities that are traditionally underrepresented, and I'm not sure how to do that, and that's primarily the reason we don't. We put things out digitally, but I think that's our main way of trying to convene. When you asked about convening, that we do a pitch competition as well, and we try to make sure that the presenters in the pitch competition aren't just all white guys, and sometimes that's tough. We've had a tough time making that a diverse group, because we look for people at a certain stage, and sometimes we get a diverse set of applicants, but they don't have an MVP even yet, or they don't have any customers yet, and we want to prepare people to pitch to investors, and they're just not at that stage yet. But we've actually made some accommodations for that in the past. But I'm kind of looking for ways to reach out and connect with these other communities better than we're able to do. So if there's any ideas there, I'd like to hear them. I don't know, did that answer your question or not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was throwing it out to everybody, depending on where you live at. Basically, the question is, how do you connect with other ecosystem builders in your area?
Oh, ecosystem builders, not entrepreneurs. That's a different answer. I'll let others go first, though.
I could chime in. So just this morning, partially intentional, but not entirely. We invited, so 1 Million Cups, I'm one of the organizers on that. We invited, we invited the folks who organize a thing called Coffee and Creatives, which is a different kind of meetup for a wide variety of more creative, don't necessarily think of themselves as entrepreneurs first, but it's a particularly good, healthy group in terms of interaction, and also being very, very diverse. So we invited them to talk at 1 Million Cups, but afterwards, I was talking with the organizers there about Global Entrepreneurship Week and some plans. And one of the women mentioned she was on the board with our African American Chamber of Commerce, and just, how do we include those folks? But as folks on this call know, inclusion's kind of a weird word. Include them in something somebody else owns. So I think what we came to is, we recognize that we're not all always playing together, nor do we want to. But I think we still need to come up with the right question to ask about what kinds of further interactions in our ecosystem here would be most valuable for everyone. Not just to make, a politician feel good or something. How do we make sure that everyone's getting value? And, I think we recognize that we weren't quite where we need to be in order to have that conversation, but things like Global Entrepreneurship Week or big events, I think, are useful in terms of saying, hey, let's get together to figure out how we can work on this together, if there's interest and if there's value.
In Kansas City, I feel like there's a lot of different intersections of different groups of people, which I think is right. I think that's the right thing that should be happening. So that means like different people have different information about initiatives going on. And many of those groups, you see a lot of different people. Now, what I don't see a lot are, we're starting to see more people from other groups besides just race-based kind of people who are focused on specific race. So we're starting to see people that are focused on veterans, people that are focused on returning citizens be involved. Still not sure where in Kansas City those focus on, are interested in focus on differently abled people are, but I am starting to see, some overlaps and intersections. But we usually get together in terms of an event, or an initiative. How to create those, relationships so they also move So it's not always initiative based, so that, you know, the information flows better, you know, so the relationships form, you know, you have a more strongly formed relationship, so information flows better is one thing I'm always thinking about over here. But I do see there ways to meet with different builders here. We get together a lot over different things. We do. But it is, so one thing I do want to say though is it is a small group. Like it feels like a discrete number of people that are in that. And do you guys run into that in your cities too, where it's like, this is the circle and I keep seeing the same circle at all these events that are related to builders? And how do you, there are other people who are doing this type of work. How do you kind of pull them in to this? Or is it that you want to pull them in, or do you want to expand it? You know, like those are the type of things that are interesting to me, what that looks like.
You know, here in Grand Rapids, the ESOs, we get together every couple of weeks, and we've been doing that for about maybe 2 years now. And the first year, it was about doing a mapping around Grand Rapids, right? Who was doing what, and what were their healthy overlaps, and who were just duplicating efforts and unnecessarily. And it took us a while, close to a good year, to look at each other and said, okay, yeah, you do what you do better than we're doing the same thing, and you do it better. So I'm going to step away from that. So that took us a whole year. Then the last year, we all collaborated in one massive a project to bring cash to entrepreneurs, which was the 100 ideas. So basically, we deployed $100,000 to 100 people at $1,000. No, we have 100 ideas, and each get $1,000, and then they go to they go to a smaller group, 20, and they get $20,000. But anyways, that took us a year to launch it. This year, so that was one program. But this year, what we're realizing is that there are other not programmatic things that we can rally around now that we feel we are cohesive. But so we're thinking about adding a commercial kitchen to this town because there's a need for it. But as we're doing that, we realize that we need kind of like one thing to rally around, aside from the usual getting together and supporting entrepreneurs. We had to develop that trust amongst each other. So because I am in the very, very early stages of that journey, then I can go to the next phase and say, here's Roberto Gonzalez, and he wants to have a food truck. So I'm done with him. Now he needs to come to you. But before, you know, I really could not. I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I didn't know them that well. So anyway, that's how we are trying to work together. But now we set ourselves on other projects.
I want to say something about what Eric had just mentioned before about inviting people. So the inclusion factor of being involved in including people into things that we're doing. I think one of the trust building things, and in my experience, I found that it really helps to actually get involved in other things that other people are doing. So the fact that you have interest and engagement in projects that are outside of our own focuses makes it less agenda filled and more community related. So if you if you know of an event for a certain demographic or different representation or whatnot, and you attend and you make friends and you take an interest and find out what the things are that they're doing and how life affects them and engage in that. I think it seems, in my experience, a little bit more genuine than always rallying people. The other things that I found are, there's a tendency, especially in communities that have a central hub of activity, that's where the activity happens. It's a lot of the times it's in the middle of the day, which makes it a barrier to entry for a lot of people. There's no childcare. It's because it's downtown or in the city core, and sometimes there's no public transportation, and all kinds of things that we don't necessarily think about, and that always makes it a challenge. So you're not sure what the environment needs to look like, because we look at things through our own lenses and through our own abilities and what seems appropriate for us. And so getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your zone, and being involved in something that's not really yours sometimes helps that. So that's my input.
So I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to move us into one more question. I know Eric has listed for future call Natalie Self, and I wanted to know, and you don't have to answer the question now, there's an opportunity on the agenda. If there is a topic or if you're interested in maybe a panel discussion, or if you want to volunteer to share something with the group around inclusive field, we offer the opportunity for you to suggest a topic here on the agenda. And so if you have somebody in mind that you think would be great to present to us and help us continue about our work, please let us know. If anybody has an idea right now, we can take it down. Otherwise, feel free to update the agenda or stick it in the chat, and we'll take notice of that, and we will work to try to get those people available to you guys on the calls as they come up. Anything else? Any questions or thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Well, we're heading into the end. So if there is any like burning questions or something, I'll raise my hand and say, I don't know. We want to also respect folks and organizations, and this is all volunteer stuff. What we're doing on these calls. But if there's some particular topic that the folks from Change Catalyst, as we do have a couple folks on the call, anything that you think would be really good for this group in terms of moving this discussion forward, I'd love to get, one of you to speak about what you've been working on or something, some lesson learned. I just, you're one of the really true expert organizations in this. So would love to get more.
See, Eric I was trying to be slick about it and just be like, if anybody wants to volunteer, but Eric just went ahead and called y'all out. So yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that from you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, sure, that sounds like a great idea. I can sync with our team, and maybe we can talk about what might be something great to share on a future call, and something that might align with goal 2, and we'd love to do that. So Malika, Cecilia, is that something I could connect with one of you about?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, well, Cecilia, do you have any closing things that people need to know?
Looks like, sorry, not not that I can think of. We're coming into a time when things are just kind of coalescing. So thank you for your energy. Thank you, Malika and Eric, for kind of leading these efforts and sharing this, stewarding this ship as it moves forward. So I think that there's so much knowledge on this call that I'm really eager to tap into all of it. So thank you all.
All right. Well, with that, I'm okay with giving y'all 3 minutes back. Everybody good with that? Okay.
Perfect.
Well, it is nice to see you and hope to see you again next month.
Thank you all. Bye.
Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone.
rest of your afternoon, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.